What's the difference between Craftsman and Victorian? Both are 19th century design movements inspired by escape. Both arose during the Victorian era, and both end with the letter N. There is something whimsical and yet down-to-earth about these types of houses. What's their story? Why are they so charming? And why are they so difficult to maintain? I did an art history deep dive to try and learn more about each movement's main themes and historical contexts. I'm sure this analysis has some blind spots, but this is what I learned. In a nutshell, Victorian houses were named after the Victorian era, that is, the reign of Queen Victoria, Queen of England from 1836 until 1901. With Victorian houses, architects got a little crazy after centuries of square, symmetrical, and perhaps boring houses. Victorian houses are basically a mishmash of whatever the architect liked. They usually have lots of ornamentation. Victorian houses were especially popular in Great Britain and its former colonies like Australia, the Caribbean, Canada, and the United States. Craftsman is like Victorian's handsome, more practical cousin. Craftsman houses come from the arts and crafts movement. This movement was also founded in England, but it really caught on in North America, where there was lots of space to build new homes. This movement started also during the Victorian era, and it still continues to this day. Let's take a look at the time that inspired these houses. The Victorian era is a rich and fascinating period of history. Some films that take place during the Victorian era are Crimson Peak, Jane Eyre, and From Hell. Some popular authors were Charles Dickens and the Bronte sisters. It is worth mentioning that Jane Austen is not Victorian, she is Georgian, the period right before Victorian. You'll sometimes hear the word Victorian used to describe something rigid, oppressive, or excessively conservative or prudish. Here are some quotes by Queen Victoria that sort of set the tone for Victorian England. "Beware of artists. They mix with all classes of society and are therefore most dangerous. I love peace and quiet. I hate politics and turmoil. We women are not made for governing, and if we are good women, we must dislike these masculine occupations. Do not let your feelings, very natural and unusual ones, of momentary irritation and discomfort be seen by others, and don't let every little feeling be read in your face and seen in your manner." It was a highly repressed time. The Victorians had strict manners and moral codes. These emerged from a desire for control in a scary, uncertain, rapidly changing world. By the mid-1800s, the Industrial Revolution was well underway, pumping smoke into the atmosphere by the ton. There were factories all over England, and after the Crown abolished slavery in 1834, children were the main source of labor. In the year 1850, the average life expectancy for workers in Manchester was only 17. Living conditions were crammed and dismal, and the disease tuberculosis incapacitated rich and poor alike. That's why you see so many Victorian heroines wasting away in their beds, wearing collars up to their chins, fainting on the stairs, and becoming dinner for vampires. The filth of industrialization left people craving the country. From the secret life of Victorian houses, city dwellers knew country folk were healthier. They didn't know why, but they saw that people who got a lot of fresh air didn't get tuberculosis and yellow fever as often. They reasoned that breathing used air was unhealthy. They became fresh air fiends. It's both surprising and unsurprising then that a nostalgia for the Middle Ages emerged. The Middle Ages were another time of rampant disease, but it was also to the Victorians a time more in touch with nature.
They are kind of idealizing and dreaming about this system where objects were produced in small-scale workshops rather than these large, anonymous, brutal factories. And
they're looking for artisan sourdough bread.
I really like this graphic. It's kind of like the Live, Laugh, Love poster of the Victorian era. The Victorians added elements of the pre-industrial medieval times to their own trying times. Handicrafts like wood carving became the basis for both Victorian and Craftsman designs. You've probably seen this pattern before. It's called the Strawberry Thief. This is a textile print by the designer William Morris. William Morris and his British buddies founded the arts and crafts movement around 1868. William Morris argued that art led to a higher quality of life. He said, "Art will make our streets as beautiful as the woods, as elevating as the mountain sides. I do not want art for a few any more than education for a few or freedom for a few." Take that, Queen Victoria. The main difference between Victorian and Craftsman is that Craftsman is more rustic and DIY, and Victorian is more elegant and mass-produced. Both styles wanted to uplift people out of the Industrial Revolution and into a fantasy. Let's look at 3 examples of Victorian escapes. It's no secret that San Francisco has some of the world's best Victorians, but San Fran's greatest Victorian treasure is now nothing more than a ghost on the cliffs. The Victorian Cliff House has a sort of Victorian chateau look. See how much it looks like Queen Victoria's palace? It also sort of looks like the Grand Budapest Hotel. Back in the day, people called the Cliff House the Gingerbread Palace. The Cliff House is technically a restaurant, although it served lots of functions over the years. From 1884 till 1907, the Cliff House was something of a community center. The engineer and politician Adolphe Sutro built the Cliff House and the nearby Sutro Baths, presumably as a sort of buttering up tactic for when he ran for and won the election for mayor of San Francisco. The Sutro Baths offered saltwater pools, a museum, a skating rink, and quote-unquote other pleasure grounds to the lucky people of San Francisco. Doesn't that look like fun? The fun was short-lived, however. After only 23 years, the Cliff House burned to the ground. That's because a nearby ship full of illegal dynamite exploded and an ember was carried by the wind to the Cliff House, where the Victorian structure went up in flames. They rebuilt the Cliff House 2 years later in 1909, this time with a more modern look. One of the most intriguing things about these cottages is that they look like they haven't changed in almost 150 years. Oak Bluffs was built by Methodists in the year 1835. Starting around the 1920s, the island of Martha's Vineyard became a historically black vacation destination. There's really no better escape than a gingerbread cottage on an enchanted island. Oak Bluffs on Martha's Vineyard is like Candyland, and it looks like elves dwell within their whimsical walls. This one is even called Rivendell. These gingerbread cottages are topped with their own confections, like candy hearts, wood cuttings, and an icing of candy colors. Most Victorian houses are built out of wood. Wood is a relatively fragile and porous building material, and the combination of water and wood probably gives Victorian houses their reputation for notoriously never-ending upkeep. When you think of a haunted house, you might picture a Victorian house. Wooden Victorian houses fell into disrepair very quickly, and wealthy people often abandoned them before they fixed them up. And let's face it, abandonment is scary. Many people think that Gothic means spooky, but it actually just means a house that uses elements of medieval Gothic design, like stone, stained glass, and the Gothic arch. Ironically, Gothic Victorians are the most likely to stick around, and that's usually because they're made out of stone. All of the Disney haunted mansions are Victorians, but the one at Disney World is a nice example of the Gothic Victorian. It's not quite a castle, but the stone, spires, and spookiness feel like a throwback to the medieval times. There could be a mad wife locked in the attic, or ghosts at the pianoforte. No matter where you are in the world, Victorian design whisks you away to another place and time. By the height of its popularity, companies started producing Victorian decorations in factories, which kind of defeated the whole point. The arts and crafts movement distanced people even further from mass production by saying, why don't you just make it yourself? The arts and crafts movement encouraged people not only to escape, but to build their own worlds. And thus, the do-it-yourself movement was born. There is something about Craftsman that screams forest! The whole point of the Craftsman and arts and crafts movements was the great outdoors, the wonder of the natural world. The arts and crafts movement thrived in the United States, where virgin forests and unsettled lands meant people actually could build their own homes. Building plans and kits spread the Craftsman house from coast to coast. The main craftsman guy in the United States is designer Gustav Stickley. Gustav Stickley ran a magazine called The Craftsman, which encouraged the arts and crafts movement and often included do-it-yourself designs. He said, "We have planned houses that are based on the big fundamental principles of honesty, simplicity, and usefulness, the kinds of houses that children will rejoice all their lives to remember as home." Doesn't that sound nice? Stickley's own house is a craftsman masterclass. The interior has a rich wood, handmade furniture, and medieval elements. Check out the stone fireplace, the stained glass, and the pew-like benches. This interior has been updated with an old PC. Does this house feel homey to you? Craftsman stuff was supposed to be simple enough to make yourself. Decorations use straight lines and straightforward shapes, not fancy curls and swirls like Victorian. This lantern is the quintessential Craftsman piece. It uses straight lines, easy decorations, and amber glass for a soft, natural light. It looks almost like a miniature house itself. Craftsman furniture looks like the houses, with simple shapes and gorgeous materials. The garden is almost as important as the house. No use pretending you're one with nature if there's no nature around. Craftsman gardens are often wild and untamed. They provide shade, cooling, and sometimes food for these beautiful houses. Craftsman houses invite you to become part of the house, either by building the house, building the things in the house, or simply by enjoying a glass of iced tea in the integrated garden. The answer to the question, why don't you just do it yourself, is because doing it yourself is hard, time-consuming, and requires specific sets of skills. Today, most Craftsman furniture is produced by companies, but both Victorian and Craftsman houses are favorites of people who like a little project. The bungalow is one of the coziest types of Craftsman houses. The bungalow is, well, low. Architect and author Robert Winter writes these houses hug the ground as if they had grown from it. They are typically a single story with a big porch and thick, square pillars. You can see lots of bungalows at Bungalow Heaven in Southern California. These Craftsman cottages are on plots of land that are mostly garden. Even as the city buzzes around them, these Craftsman bungalows offer a little piece of paradise. The Old Faithful Inn at Yellowstone National Park looks like a hall for dwarves. The architect Robert Reamer built this hotel out of the forest he chopped down to build it. When they expanded the hotel in 1914, this type of clear-cutting was illegal. You can still see remnants of the old forest inside the lodge in the form of these antler-like pillars. I think this lodge does a good job of showing the irony of destroying actual nature to build man's idea of it. Nevertheless, this lodge helps visitors enjoy the beauty of Yellowstone year-round. This is the place that got me so interested in Craftsman design in the first place, the Grand Californian Hotel at Disneyland Resort. Even though this hotel is in the middle of a theme park, once you step inside, everything feels quiet and peaceful. Well, unless there's a screaming kid around. They've planted an impromptu pine forest around the hotel, which dampens sound, provides shade, and even smells nice. The Grand Californian has a relaxing, woodsy color palette. It takes inspiration from other Craftsman hotels like the Old Faithful Inn and the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite National Park. Note the cobblestone pillars, high vaulted ceilings, and rustic lighting. When I'm in this hotel, I feel like I've left Anaheim and entered Sacramento. Victorian and Craftsman houses wanted to take people away from an uncertain present and future into a certain idealized past. In the process, they created their own presents and formed some of the vacation destinations we know and love today. These houses gave Victorian people a shining light, a home base, a place to ground down during times of strictness and uncertainty. Today, communities make special efforts to preserve these houses. They might update materials, but they try to keep their charm intact. Was William Morris right? Does a nice house mean a nice life? Maybe. What do you think? Do you prefer Craftsman or Victorian? What's your favorite example of each? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe, share it with someone who likes these houses or this point in history, and make sure you click the bell icon so you don't miss a minute of art history. But even if you don't do any of that stuff, I'm so glad you came to hang out with me today. Take care, everybody. Cheers.